Of the Cohasset Advisory Committee, Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. It is 7:04. So could I get a roll call, please? Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay here.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron here.
Fran Collins.
Yep.
Doesn't look like Rob's here. Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy here.
Mary McGoldrick.
Here.
Meg Wheeler.
Present.
And Gina Stino present. Okay, so welcome. Are you going to be joined by anyone tonight, Patrick, or is it a one-man show?
Well, I believe Craig McClellan is joining me. Sue Owen is over at Capitol right now. We went over time on that, so it got late, so she's just presenting a couple of items. So
okay.
I have a presentation, and I'll run with it.
All righty. Okay. I'm sure Chris can make you host. Patrick, I forwarded along just the budget presentation that you guys gave the committee and the capital list. I had talked to Lance or Craig just about getting some enrollment and FTE numbers, if you guys have those.
We do have them, yes, and
great.
So I'll share that in the presentation. If I can share a screen, I can go through it.
Super.
Thank you. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Lovely. Okay. So, Jean, whenever you think, Chair Stino, whenever you think I should start, I'll be glad to.
Jean is fine, and feel free to start. This is a little bit different than what we have. No, this is the same one that we have. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you have, but I think it's the same content-wise.
It is. It's the April 10th, 2024. I saw that May 1st date, and I thought maybe there were updates, but please go right on.
It's not May 1st, so I don't know why that's there, but it's I think that might have been.
Is.
Oh, today's May 1st. It is May 1st. Yeah.
That's why.
Whew. Okay, April went by very quickly for me. So yeah, so this is
today to be sure that it was May 1st.
Yeah. So this is the presentation that we provided for school committee, and it does reflect the budget that was approved and voted through. You'll note a few unique features in this as we get into it. This year, because of some budget constraints and us understanding that the town's been good to us over the last few years. I feel we've grown substantially, and we really wanted to make sure we were being fiscally responsible as always, but particularly this year as we had a higher COLA rate in terms of what we had negotiated with our teachers, and our goal was to maintain staff and then to be able to make sure that we put the best product for our kids. So I think what you'll see here shows what we'd like to do with some growth in the future, perhaps, but it also shows some fiscal responsibility in our budget this year. So just to outline our FY25 budget priorities. These budget priorities tie into our strategic plan, and our strategic plan was a 3-year strategic plan, which is actually up this year. We're extending it a bit, just so this board knows, to sort of grow out some of these, all of these compass points. We felt it was important for Superintendent Shannon, who's coming in, and I think she's a great choice and is going to do a wonderful job to be able to work with the team and the town to create a strategic plan of our own moving forward, or of their own. But we felt there's still some work to be done on these compass points. So teaching and learning is our first compass point. And this year, moving forward, this year and moving forward, we're really solidifying our curriculum documents, making sure we have publishable front-facing documents that show how we're meeting the standards into all subject areas, and that this also includes creating benchmark assessments. And we have which is of note to the advisory, we have a cycle now, which is a curriculum review cycle, where different subjects get attention and it affects the budget. One of the things that was difficult when I came in as assistant super is that we really needed a real look at our early literacy and early numeracy programs. And that's a hard, and all of you who have been on school committee know that's a hard road, I guess that's a hard pull to do when you're trying to think of the budget that is required for both of those subjects. And we have a cycle now that really is in line with being responsible from a budget perspective, where we look at certain subjects. So we wouldn't be asking for a new math curriculum and a new ELA curriculum or literacy curriculum at the elementary at the same time, for instance. So that's part of it. And it also gives us a really good focus on particular subjects. Social emotional learning continues to be a pillar. It's a real student-centered approach. You know, it is the plate for everything we do. And that includes making sure that our students are well and are doing well socially and not just academically. Resources, and there's been a particular attention on resources, maintaining what we have here, and we have a lot here in Cohasset, and then looking towards needed improvements that sometimes come through capital, and sometimes even a bigger ask, like our statement of interests to the MSBA. We did put in a request for our roof in Osgood this year. It's our first year when we've had the roof come of age. I think it's 25 years, and it's our oldest roof. So we did put a request in for that, and we continue to put a statement of interest in for our middle high school for looking at, you know, whatever it might be, a renovation or however it's decided by the town. We want to explore that. And our budget also includes communication and engagement. We're always trying to prioritize keeping family-like schools and really engaging our families on every level, not just communication, but engaging them in helping them, providing resources as we all work to parent our kids, and also creating connections with the community, bringing community groups to help with us. Cohasset is so rich in the community, in what they can offer us from an experiential standpoint. We have a lot of fantastic people and fantastic businesses in Cohasset, and also making sure that that we're attending to the learning needs of our students by helping families at home, and that comes into Compass Point 4. So our appropriated budget for 2024 was 22,905, and our contractual salary obligations, as you can see, bring it up to just that alone is a 5.82% pull. Yes, Jean.
Patrick, you said 22,000. It's actually 22 million.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make sure that all the numbers are clear.
Yeah, no. I said 20. I don't know why I said 22,000. Absolutely, 22 million. Yes, $22,905,421. And we have 5.82% increase just in contractual salary obligations, and now we have a projected retirement savings. And I want to be clear what that means. It means that usually, quite honestly, almost always, our retiring professionals are at the top of the salary scale, and we typically find a savings in hiring new folks in, because we don't typically hire them at that level of the scale. So this year with our retirements, we're estimating about $108,000.
Do you know how many people that is? Can you give us a ballpark?
Yeah, I think it's 4.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're looking at. About 4 people. In our rollover requests, as you can see, are 5.04% when you count the projected retirement savings into our contractual savings salary obligations. So again, we did see some reductions in circuit breaker funding. And we did see a substantial increase in special education tuitions. One of the things we'll talk about here is a resource by the state. Special education tuitions in private institutions increased by 14%. So that's a major issue for districts. And some districts were really decimated by that. We're hanging in pretty well. And I think it's, again, feel very fortunate to be in Cohasset because many towns around us have not been able to recover from this. We are planning on doing something a little atypical for us. And, you know, this isn't something that it's something we can do, but we don't typically do from being a fiscally responsible standpoint. Usually the circuit breaker is used in the year that follows, but you can use circuit breaker money, which comes in during the current year or the year that follows. This year, we're using Q1 circuit breaker and using it for this year's budget, which we're able to do. So it's essentially sort of kicking the can down the road a bit. A lot of districts have to do this. And as I said, with the decrease in circuit breaker funding and the hike in increase in special education tuitions, we're really we're looking at doing that as well. We've worked this through with the town, and you know, I do understand that this is a little bit of a pinch and a change in sort of things we're doing, and I do see some hands. Jean, if you want me to, I'll let you
call on people, Patrick.
Yeah, I saw Mary's hand first and then Fran's.
Okay, Jean, first, just to clarify, are you okay if we ask questions as we go, or would you rather have us wait?
I am fine with it. Sometimes it's a little bit distracting to have to go back, as long as Patrick doesn't mind.
Patrick, just so you know, I'm now the chair of a board of a school that serves students with intellectual disabilities on the South Shore. And I'm just wondering if, I know the reconstruction rates came in this year. That's a big increase. Everybody is needing to absorb that. Do you guys forecast, because it's going to happen again in 2026, are you able to forecast that or just build a little bit of a buffer in for yourself? Because the rates certainly aren't going to go down.
We're trying to build a buffer into our operational budget for some out of district placement needs that may come about, and even for some settlements that may come about. So yeah, we're looking at that, but I wish I had a better answer for you.
I know it's hard. It's hard to put money away when you don't have enough money to pay what you got to pay right now. So I get that.
It's tight. And our game was to save positions and to not put ourselves in a crippled place where we can't recover from. And that's why, you know, we thought using the Q1 circuit breaker payment would give us the ability to recover from it and not be, you know, so indebted because we are going to have this similar situation next year, as you said.
And then where do things stand with the special education fund?
So we asked for money from the special education fund. I think that comes up a little bit later in the presentation.
Okay, we'll keep it for then.
Okay, and then Fran
Thank
had
you.
a question.
Would you enlighten me what circuit breaker funding is, or what you're defining as a circuit breaker?
Yeah, circuit breaker is money that the state gives us for it's a fund for unexpected special education placement costs, and it's a fund that we have that comes to us. It's a calculation, and it gives us a certain amount of money moving forward to stabilize our special education.
So this is a subsidy from the state then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yep, and it's provided for all communities. Jean?
I do have a question that may also come up later, so feel free to tell me that. I know that we were kind of counting on an increase in enrollment, getting us a little bit more money when we went to full day kindergarten. Is that later in the presentation, or can I ask that now?
I've seen so many versions of this.
I'm just curious how that happened.
No, yeah. So that's Chapter 70 funding.
Right.
And it was when we originally because of inflation costs and other factors, when we originally forecasted how much we would get back. So the issue with Chapter 70 is an enrollment number. You get a certain amount of money and the amount of kids you have in a district. We had students in full day kindergarten, but we were tuition, so we were paying. We had people paying it. So the thought was moving forward that because we were putting in our budget the cost of the students for full day kindergarten, that we would get back that money from Chapter 70. The problem is it didn't. The projections that we based it on, it didn't end up happening. And so we were a bit in arrears with that as well. And we had to figure that out and absorb it into our budget. So we didn't get back as much. Remember, Chapter 70 comes to the town, and then we get our percentage from that Chapter 70. And it was, we had hoped it would be over $300,000, and it was much lower. So.
Well, that's sad.
It is. It was really the difference between the circuit breaker payment for Q1 and not the circuit breaker payment for Q1. Like that's the reason we have that red number in front of you right now.
Okay. I remember sitting through a training session at one of the school committee events on the Cape, where they explained the very complicated process of putting all those funds together, and it just goes in one ear and out the other because it's crazy.
It's hard because this had been, as you know, Jean, because you were there when I heard this for the first time, and I'm sure it was a request before I even was in Cohasset, that the community really did desire full free day kindergarten. And
absolutely.
There are many districts around us that have that, very few that don't. And so we really did want to work. So I think we acted on sort of good faith that this estimate that we were provided by, it wasn't provided by DESE, it was provided by analysts that work with DESE and are very well respected. So it was accurate at the time, but it didn't pan out with the way the numbers fell at the end. And actually it was much less than we had thought. So that was a very tense budgeting discussion that we had, but we were able to balance it and work it through with the town manager's help. And I think we're in a good spot. And again, that's really why we're using quarter circuit breaker 1 payment.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll move on then.
Great.
So we did look at what we could save, knowing that we had to make up some money. ESP, those are our, for all intents and purposes, our aides that are professionals who work with our students, typically are assigned for students who have special education programs. And they could be one-on-one with a student, but often they facilitate and help students within classrooms. We had estimated that we had trouble filling. It's funny, Cohasset we don't have trouble filling positions for teachers. Everybody wants to come here. All of our positions that we hired over the last few years they've been our top choices, and it's paying off. We're really seeing great teaching happening from them. The ESP positions weren't as easy to fill. After COVID, they weren't as easy to fill, and it's something that we dealt with, and we need to make sure that we fulfill all our IEP obligations, and we were able to do that without 2 ESP positions. We didn't fill them this year. We were able to meet all our IEP requirements, and so we're just not going to fill them moving forward. So that saves us about $50,000. I mentioned that 14% increase in private institutions. We are going to receive what's called SPED reserve relief, but we don't know yet. I was hoping I'd have that information today because it was supposed to get it in May, but I don't have it yet, but we know we're gonna see some savings there. And we did do we called it an efficiency package. We sat down with the leadership team and really went through all of our subscriptions and make sure that we didn't have any dead wood there in terms of educational materials. We didn't have any overlap that we could facilitate. We basically took away $20,000 worth of materials that it wasn't that they weren't needed. It's just that we felt if we had to tighten our belt, we could get away without having them. So we were able to carve out about $74,887 in savings from the areas that I list above. And that's helped us because obviously, you know, going back here, sorry, we have a big number that we need to meet with just our rollover request, 5.04%. So you can see the how the numbers kind of fall out here, and you can see our requested budget. It really comes to about 6.21, exactly 6.21%. And you can see the number there is 24 million, Gene, $328,186. Any question on how we arrived at that number? Okay. All right. So now one of the things that we do every year is actually several times is that we look at the data, and we've done a much better job over the last few years of building our data story and our data points that give us information that tells us what we need. It's not just, you know, we hear from teachers we need this. It's, well, what are our exams, and what are our statewide exams? What are our internal benchmark needs dictate? What is the state asking us to do that we're not outfitted to provide? And you can just see the laundry list here of some items that we would have liked to have approached this year, but we didn't. Our occupational therapist, we may have to deal with this in some way, but our students who need occupational therapy needs are increasing, and we were hoping to increase this person's sort of their where they were from a 0.8 to a 1.0. That would have cost us $14,000. We think we're going to be okay with that. The biggest request that the team wanted was an adding of a school adjustment counselor. One of the things that we've seen is a need for our younger students to have more care in the social emotional way throughout our elementary schools, and that was an absolute need. You could see that in our levels of attendance for particular students, and just the amount of care that we're providing them from a behavioral and social emotional sense. We had a need for increase to utilities to the budget. These are all things, again, we would have liked to have done, but we're not doing. Increase in custodial supplies. We have right now only a few English language learners, or ELs, really what they're called, in the district, but we anticipate a possible increase in that. And so we were hoping to increase our EL teacher to a 1.0. We didn't do that. We think we'll be okay, but again, that and the occupational therapist are the two I worry about a little bit moving forward, and we'll have to account for that if indeed the needs of our students in occupational therapy are higher, and if we do have some ELs, English language learners, move into the district that require those services. We have to provide both of those to our students, but right now I think we're okay. The grade 4 teacher, this is just following along with what we've done after COVID. We were able to really cut down the class sizes in first, second, third, and now it would be fourth grade. We think we'll be fine with this, honestly, but we were hoping that they're still seeing needs. I think this one was probably pretty low on our list. And then these other moves are, right now we have technology ESPs at Osgood and Deer Hill that are teaching classes. And it's a money saving mechanism, but we really, and the people who are doing it are excellent. And I'm actually hoping they're the ones that get the job. I won't be here to assign it, but they're working for their own licensure. But our students deserve, and our community deserves, licensed technology instructors in those positions, particularly with the need for computer science pathway in our district and the need for digital citizenship and technology education becoming more paramount. So all of these moves, you can see it's like, add a technician, not a technician, add a technology teacher, cut a technology ESP, add a technology teacher at Deer Hill, cut an ESP, add a special education teacher. Kindergarten is different, but the library media specialist is the same thing. We have a ESP that's a library media specialist. We really should have a licensed library media specialist. And again, nothing against the ESPs they actually are amazing. We just would like a licensed individual in those positions. Moving back up though, the special education for kindergarten teacher, we looked at that because, Jean?
Continue, and then you can call
Okay.
me on the page.
The special education teacher at kindergarten, we have a special education liaison at every level. We don't have one at kindergarten. So that's what that was put in there. We think we can get by without it. Again, we basically have the first grade liaison working with kindergarten and first grade, but it would have been nice to have. And particularly as we're not getting that adjustment counselor, which would have helped in that regard too. Not getting either of those puts us in a bit of a weakness in kindergarten. But I think we're okay. Remember, we do have an ESP and teacher in every single kindergarten class. And our ESPs, I think every single one of them is a licensed teacher in that program. So we're okay. It's just, this is just something we see the need and we were asking for it. And then I think the only other one that's on there that I didn't mention is the technician. That is a request from Ron Menard just to bolster that team. And that would be a $60,000 cost. So all of these, if we were in fairer and better weather in terms of our budget outlook, we would have asked for in some manner or another. But we're not this year, and I think we're going to be okay. Yes, Jane.
So I have to tell you, and I'm sure you don't know this, but when I first decided to run for school committee, it was because of an ESP situation. They were not treated the same way as other people in the district were. I took offense to that. Whenever there were budget cuts, they were done on the ESP level. ESP stands for Educational Support Professional. And I believe that until I finished on the school committee, all of those people had education degrees. It's just a matter of getting licensed in the area that they want to specialize in. So I don't want that comment to go by the wayside. I think that that's important for people to know. They do more than their share. And I think that they're vitally important. I was also the person who stood up and said, no, if we're going to have all these kindergartens, we need a second person in that classroom. How does the teacher go to the bathroom? Who helps the kids? Who helps 20, or it was never 20, but who helps 18 kids put their boots on and their coats in the winter? Because going outside is important. So those people, as I said, do more than their fair share of the work in a classroom. And I think that it's important to recognize them for that also. I did have another question, but what is the average class size at the elementary level now? Do you know off the top of your head?
I can give you an estimate. I mean, it varies somewhat per grade, but it's about 21.
Okay.
Does that seem high or low?
It seems high to me.
Yeah, I think in some places, I think we can look at it. It may be under 20.
Okay.
Certainly not above.
most of the classes were under 20 at the time there was a concern about kindergarten. So, but that's again why we have a second person in the room to provide support to the teacher and the students.
Yeah, we've done a nice job of keeping our class sizes very low. Most districts have higher class, have some higher class, and I think it's paying off. And Jean, I can't thank you enough for actually, when you were a school committee member, advocating for that, because I do think it sets Cohasset above many places, and it did particularly at that time, is that was very rare. And now I think a lot of districts have followed in suit and have that, or at least really want it. And that's a model that we wanted to follow. And yes, I can't stress enough that ESPs are hugely important. In this particular case with the cutting of an ESP, it's not to cut the ESP, it's to make sure that that position is a certified teacher. And that's all. Those ESPs, would still have a job somewhere in our district. We're not cutting them as individuals. And yeah, they make the world go round, believe me, and they're worth their money. They're worth their weight in gold for sure. So we need to treat them that way.
And one last question. Do you know what the average class size is at the upper grades? Middle high school?
I think it's actually, it might be in this presentation as we move forward.
Okay.
I think it's, I don't know it varies. Again, it's hard to find an average. I think the average is pretty low.
Well, with block scheduling, it's difficult too, because so many kids want to take certain classes, and
yeah, there are very few classes that are above the high 20s. Very few. Some are very low. But again, that's why the average is misleading. Average is very, very low, but it's not necessarily what we see in some classes. Some social studies classes.
When my girls were there, some of the classes had 9 students and others had 24. So it depends on the block, and how there are a lot of things considered in the class size. I know. I was just curious.
Yeah. Okay. Fran, sorry, Mr. Collins.
As Mary would say, a quick question. English language learner to 1.0 DW and IT tech DW. What's DW?
Yeah, sorry. District-wide.
District-wide, thank you.
Yeah, so we have ELs come in at all different levels and ages. And what I mean by levels is it basically is how well have they mastered the English language, and they require different services. And so and they come in at all different ages. Sometimes they
you explained that well. I just was concerned about that DW. I didn't.
No. Absolutely. I don't know why anybody would know what DW means. I should have said that. Thank you.
Are we ready to go?
I can't see everybody. Just to make sure. Okay, good. Yep. All right.
Okay.
So this is blurry. I hope you can see it, but this is just the whole budget. As you can see, it's sort of laid out with everything I've talked about. You'll note the staffing request. There's 2 in black. The only reason we put those in darker print is just to show you that those were the 2 positions that our leadership team felt if we did ever get more money in this particular budget that we would go for, because again, the adding of the OT is that's really something we may have to look at anyway, because of the needs of our special education students. And then the adjustment counselor, that also fills not only the needs of the elementary students, but it helps our kindergarten by sort of offsetting the lack of getting that kindergarten special education teacher. And then you can see everything in the way it kind of rolls out. So just a different way of looking at the budget that we have put in front of you. And this is just, these are some future budget goals, and I won't necessarily go through all of them unless you'd like me to. And you were all sent this, but if I click on, I'm not going to do it, but the FY25 working draft, that is absolutely what that is. It's something that we look at quarterly and kind of go through the data, both the qualitative and quantitative data about what we might need in the district and in particular buildings for positions. But you can see that all of these budget goals tie into our strategic plan, expanding our therapeutic offerings and social emotional learning, looking at our multi-tiered system for supports is MTSS. That's tiered supports. And just what that means is the first tier is what you get in the classroom, where a teacher's teaching everybody, so everybody's getting that. And then tier 2 is a deeper dive with some interventions for students who need it more. Tier 3 is usually one-on-one or very small group, one-to-one intervention. And then sometimes for some students, if they have a disability and have the need, they move to a special education situation. And again, sometimes that happens irrespective of MTSS. But we do need continue to expand what we provide students for supports at all of those tiers. And elementary foreign language is something that we'd love to put in moving forward. Our students would need that, and also building out our foreign language at the upper levels. Continuing to build a computer science pathway for students. We're making some good progress with that. And obviously the safety of and security of our buildings is important. I feel really good about the state we're in. We've had independent security analysis done, and we're in a good standing, but there's constant updates that we need to do, working with the police and fire, upgrading our facilities, our cultural responsive teaching, arts and music offerings, all of these things, the curriculum review process, sometimes that produces a need, and sometimes that's a curriculum need we need to explore. Elementary assistant principals, we've hired some positions that help our elementary assistant principals with evaluation now, but most of the districts around us, their elementary schools have elementary assistants. I don't know that we need them right now, but it's something to look at in the future as a possibility. Continue to expand English language arts and math resources, science specialists at the elementary level, with all the attention being paid to math and literacy. Sometimes science and social studies can get short shrift. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. Sometimes having a coach, we have math coaches and literacy coaches at our elementary schools. Having science specialists would be helpful as well. And our vocational innovation offerings for students, very much moving to a hands-on, more authentic learning process for our students. I think your next superintendent, who has a specialty in that, will really lead Cohasset in that direction. I think you should be proud that she's coming in to help you with that. And then that also goes for project-based learning options, and then expanding health, physical education, and wellness offerings. The short story is this is working. It's working from what we've been provided over the last few years is increasing already, some great things that have always been in Cohasset are now becoming more notable. We had some really high achievement in MCAS scores this year. Actually, if you look at all of the districts in the state, Cohasset was second only to one charter school in terms of our success in meeting our targets. People should be very proud of that. Our team was very proud of that. And our achievement scores are moving in the right direction. Our slide off of COVID was less than, I think, almost any district in the Commonwealth. That's something to be very proud of. We were able to hold the ship together, and families have a lot to do with that. But and I think our educators certainly did. And you can see some of the success points here. This isn't a rare thing for us, but it's nice. We have one of the things that's so fantastic about Cohasset Public Schools is that we have open enrollment in our AP programming, and we achieve so well with students performing at 4s and 5s on the AP exams, and that's very rare. In a lot of cases, the high scoring school districts have a very select amount of students who are in it. And we have a very high enrollment in our AP classes and very high success rate. And we were recognized as such this year, the Platinum Award. And you can just see some of if you look at the college culture, the college credit, and the college optimization. You know, we're really showing to be a school that puts a premium in AP programming and does very, very well. And this has been the case with Cohasset for many, many years, but we're continuing that trend. This is exactly what I was talking about, our progress towards improving targets. And like I said, this is the top progress level of any district in the state, really, when it comes down to it. We did very, very well in meeting our targets. Fran?
Yeah, back to your elementary school foreign language. My observations over the last quite a few years, and as you know, I spent a good deal of my life overseas, all sorts of foreign countries, is that I find students can conjugate every verb in the language and understand every single tense, but can't speak a word. Are we focusing on being teaching kids to be vocal, to be able to speak the languages? That seems to be the missing link.
Yeah, we have some work. You're talking about world languages, I assume.
Spanish, French, German, Mandarin, whatever it is.
Yeah, we have some work to do in languages. I think we do a nice job with what we have right now, but I'd like to see us grow it out to start at the elementary level. I think that would build just that exploratory level, and I'd like to see us build more languages in. Right now, that's a challenge. It's something that I think the next administration will push towards. I certainly would if I was staying here, and I think your points are very well taken. Mr. Cameron, Mark, I'm sorry I missed your hand.
Oh, no, that's all right. Thank you. How do we rank in the college acceptance rate?
Oh, very high. I mean, our college acceptance rate is it's amongst the highest in the state. And our graduation rate at high school is 100%. So I mean, we're doing great work. Just to give you an example, we have roughly 100 kids in the class, and 5% of them got into Ivy this year.
That's
We
great.
have four students going to Dartmouth, one going to Princeton. And, you know, I'm just giving you an example. There are some great schools that aren't Ivy that our kids are going to as well. But our college acceptance rate is high, and the quality of schools, and again, I am not taking credit. The Cohasset has done this since before I was here, but the quality of schools that we put our kids in is something people can be really proud of. And town should be proud of it. Just want to make sure I've lost. I need to change my view here. There we go, so I can see all of you. There we go. Now I can see all of you. Sorry. Okay. Oh, my apologies. Here's some enrollment numbers, and I'll just put them on the right here so you can see FY24 and FY25. And then you can in later slides, there's some more broad-based NESDEC data that shows kind of where we're moving. We're sort of fluttering around the same level, sinking a little, and then coming back up, according to NESDEC in years to come. But you get a sense for there are the class sizes, Gene.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question. I'm just reading.
No, that's okay. I just saying that there were some of the class sizes there for the elementary.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So I think my 21 was probably about right for looking at it. Mary?
Yeah, just a quick question, because I was poking around on DESE when I had a free moment. So DESE has us at 1406 this year. So I mean, that's a slight difference because that's the projected number for 25. So you've obviously got more kids coming in.
Yeah.
Why would there be a discrepancy?
I don't know. I'd have to look at that myself.
And they may take that data from the beginning of the year, or this, I don't know.
They do. I think it's from October, because that's when we send in our, it's when we send in our SIMS data. So whenever that was, and this is up to date. So apparently we got 5 kids since that happened.
Okay.
That's my best guess, Mary. I'd have to.
Yeah, no. Just for us to see this in the class sizes, especially year over year, is really, really helpful. So appreciate it.
Should I go to the next slide? I think that'd give a little more.
Okay.
So again, this shows the month by month. And Sue does go over this. Sue Owens, our Director of Finance and Operations, with the school committee monthly. I mean, yeah, every month.
I do remember historically, I think, Gina, it was when Paul Schubert was on the committee with us, they had done a historical look back of like, I don't know, it could have been 30 years. And
Forever.
senior class size vacillated between 85 and 105. It just went, it
Yeah.
kind of went up and down and up and down and up and down, but those were the parameters and that's what it did.
Right.
Yep. You can see if you look at the lower, kind of the lower grades, it's, you can see where we dip and then we come up a
of
little
course.
bit more.
And that's, I think it's always been that way.
Yep.
It also dips, now that the private schools have middle schools,
Mhm.
you know, we'll lose some of these kids. It probably won't be next year, whatever that number was, 1425. It probably won't be that high. It could kind of stay steady. You never know. I mean,
You're right. I will
some years
say,
you lose 20 kids and some years you lose 5.
very true. I'd like to see the trends over the next few years now that we've established a middle school that is uniquely a middle school, which I think is a really great thing. You know,
Advocated for that.
sure did, and that was, you know, part of the work that the school committee did when I was an assistant superintendent,
Right.
and then we sort of grew it out when I was a superintendent, and you know, as I'm moving to another district, that might be what I'm most proud of is the way the middle school came together at the, you know, with the community. So I think the community is very proud of the middle school right now. And often the middle schools in communities people are really worried about, and I think our middle school's doing great. So kudos to Cohasset. This is small, but I know you have it in your packet. This is sort of as we grow out over the years, and you can see the projections. Well, this is historical enrollment. So this is back to what you were talking about, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So much time on this. It's just a different way of presenting it. See, dipping a little bit, but then if you go to this slide, this goes out to 2033, 34, which seems like crazy, but you can see the numbers are, you know, they increase and then they go down a little bit. So it's sort of wavering around the same. It's, to me, it doesn't really give me any information that tells me we're going to be decreasing massively or increasing massively.
You can't figure that out, Patrick, until it happens. It's all random.
I know. I don't know how I don't even know how they estimate some of that stuff, to be honest with you. It's not really my forte, but it is fascinating. And this is a little bit more of a clear view of what they think is going to happen with our enrollment. Nostradamus and crew, I guess. This is a head count, so you can see where we are right now. We have increased over the last several years.
So Patrick, we actually didn't get these in our packet. If it's possible for whether we work through Craig or whomever to include that would be great. Just for at this point for next year.
Absolutely. I can send this presentation over to all of you as well, if that would be helpful.
That'd be great.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And I apologize. I actually thought you had this particular presentation, or I would have done that ahead of time.
You know what? I just pulled the presentation that was on the K-12 website off for the members.
Yeah. Sue had added some of this at your request, but I don't think you got, now I realize you didn't get the whole presentation.
Yeah, we didn't. We have most of what you've covered so far, but this is not there.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to look at this and just see if anybody has any questions. And then this next slide just, it tells you, oh, this is what things are paid out of a grant. Oh, let me go back to that. Out of grants. And you can see obviously our METCO, we have 2, we have our director and we have an ESP. It's a really a transportation ESP that also does some good work at Osgood for us. Our Title I numbers have gone way down in recent years. They used to be able to fund salaries, and now they're really not doing much in that regard. Revolving counts, and again, in particular areas, we can use a revolving account to fund areas that deal specifically with that. For instance, we can fund certain administration or clerical support in a particular area, like the cafeteria revolving. We can use that to fund those positions, and this is how we've been using them. And that's it. I'll stop my share, but I can certainly answer any more questions, and I appreciate the questions as we went through this. Again, this is a little different than the last few years, and we had some very substantive requests and I want to thank you again for being so supportive of. This year, we're just holding on to what we have, and really thankful for just the rollover costs are a lot. So that's what we're embracing and thanking you for.
I see that Rob
Rob
Hillman has joined us. I don't know how much of the presentation he may have or may not have seen. Did you see any of this, Rob? Oh, you're muted.
I saw almost all of it. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks.
So I don't know, any questions, or Jean, I'll leave it to you to lead any way you want.
I see that Diane Kennedy has her hand up.
Diane?
Hi. No, I just really wanted to say thank you for the presentation and thank you for your service to Cohasset. Very thorough. I think one question that's not really for you right now, but maybe just for long-term planning and budgeting and whatnot is, every year this just balloons and balloons, and with some of the vagaries, like with special ed costs, that how can we, I don't know, how can we plan? How can we do budget planning, knowing that there's just there's a finite limit of money out there for us to fund our great schools and our town projects. But that's not a question for tonight. I really appreciate everything you've done. So good luck with everything.
And I think you're doing it. I think really pushing us to ensure that we're using data, and that the data actually speaks to the issue, and that our solution, which sometimes comes with a price tag, is the appropriate solution. I think as town budgeting becomes tighter, there's a lot of needs in the town, I think that's a really appropriate expectation for schools. We're moving into a negotiating cycle with five units. That's going to be an important time for the town financially. So your assistance and help with that is always helpful. And I know the town needs that as well.
I do have one more question. Typically the schools have some sort of money left at the end of the year that gets returned to the town for the stabilization fund. And can you tell us what that number might look like, if any?
I think it's going to be very low, if any, because of our needs, just you can see our special education needs. I think we'll have a better idea once we see that reserve fund money,
okay,
and how much that is, and we anticipate that within the day, a few days, and that'll give us a sense. That's the one gray area that we're hoping for a lot. We have no idea how much that's going to be.
Okay, Chris, are you listening still? Can you let us know what that?
I'm always listening.
I know you are. Yeah, you're the stealth manager. Can you let us know what that number is, if any, when it is settled?
Yeah, again, as echoing Pat, I think we're not sure. I mean, we're still.
No, I understand that it may not even. I'm sure it won't even be immediate. I'm just curious when it does come, if it does come. If you could let us know.
We most certainly will.
Okay, great. And then the school committee's already voted their number, but I'm guessing that we probably have to make a recommendation for the warrant?
You do.
Yeah. So could I have a motion to recommend the school department budget for 2025 for the warrant for annual town meeting?
So moved.
And
Second.
could I have a second? I didn't hear the second.
Mark Cameron.
Okay, thank you. Hold on just a minute. Okay, so we need a roll call now, please. Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins. Fran? Oh, you're muted.
No, I'm not. Aye.
Okay. Rob Hillman,
Aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Meg Wheeler, aye.
and Gina Stino, aye. Thanks so much for your time, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank
And-
you all.
and-
I
and
have to
for-
also thank
and for
Chris
your
Seedy for his
years.
work on this. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it's always nice to have him as a collaborator and helpful. Thank you, Chris.
And I appreciate all the work, Pat, on this, and I wish you lots of success ahead.
We all
Thank you.
do.
It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to the next few weeks and graduation. So it's exciting.
you,
Some
Dr.
exciting things still ahead.
Good
Yeah.
job, Pat.
Thank you.
Have a nice night, everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the water budget. And I believe we have a representative, Chris Pratt, who can step us through that.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm well.
Nice to
How
know
are
you by your face, not just your name. You know?
Of course. Thank you. It's good to be known. Chris Pratt, Chair of the Water Commission. We don't have a presentation like Dr. Sullivan, but
that's okay.
we do have our budget that was circulated. Did anyone not receive that? Does anyone
So
not have the budget? I can bring it up.
If you could bring it up, what I got from the water department was just the minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed something. I didn't get the,
Yeah, there were two parts of that email, Mary. There were minutes, and there was also a spreadsheet.
okay,
Um,
so that's
I didn't-
my,
Spreadsheet.
When I first opened up the spreadsheet, it looked blank, but you have to pull yourself all the way to the left. It
okay,
opens up. It opened up from a mid sheet, so you have to go to comment again. There is in that email. There is a spreadsheet.
okay,
Excel.
thank you, and that's my bad. So,
Can you put it on the screen? Do you have it?
Do you want me to put it up, Chris, or do you have it?
Yeah, I have it right here.
All right, you're a co-host. You're free to go.
Okay, thanks.
Great.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Nope.
No, now we can.
Okay. So, so really what we're focusing on is column R. So this is fiscal year 25. This was finalized and approved by the Water Commission this week, Tuesday, I believe. So I can sort of walk through line by line or category by category, and certainly jump in if there's any questions, or Madam Chair, if you'd like to follow a different format of this discussion, I'm happy to do so.
You are in charge right now, Chris.
Okay, terrific, thank you. So again, column R is fiscal year 25, and then column S is just what we look at to see the year-over-year increase. So water use charges and water-based charges do follow roughly a 2.5% increase, which is based on our rate structure, the approved rate structure, which we're currently under. So our projections generally always follow an increase that falls in line with our rate structure. So water use charges obviously are water used by ratepayers, and the water-based charges are the fixed quarterly fee that ratepayers pay. So that obviously those make up the bulk of our revenues. Hydrant and sprinkler charges and town hydrant fee, those are based on actual numbers that Brenda calculates. So, you know, they're not as much of a projection as the rest of our revenues. Those are actual formulas based on quantities of units based on the fees. We're still under contract with Linden Ponds in the town of Hingham. So we are still providing water to Linden Ponds through the Hingham system. So we expect that revenue to continue, which is also a big chunk for us. System development charges is when new services are put online, the fees that we charge. So that is projected to be 54,000 again, based on what we see coming down the pipe for development and new construction this year. That's our projection of 54,000. Other revenue is a category which entails various fees, past due charges, tax liens, and other things of that nature. So that's a projection that Brendan and I both came up with for other revenue. Rental lease income is the agreements we have with the 3 cell carriers who have antennas on our water tank. So those are long-term leases and provide rental income for the water department. So total projected revenue for fiscal year 25 is 5.8 million, which, as you can see, is about a 3% increase over our budget for last year. Any questions or comments on revenue projections?
No.
Okay. So we'll skip down to expenditures. All, you know, pretty standard from last year. We have seen, like a lot of the other departments, increased costs across the board: transportation, materials, fuel, chemicals. So we're certainly not immune to that. We see that. But the rate structure is allowing for us to maintain a solid balanced budget. So you'll see the increases over previous year are relatively small in most categories. Line 37, contracted services, that is our agreement with our operator, Woodard and Curran. They provide all the staff and the day-to-day operations for the department. All water department employees, all staff members of the water department are Woodard and Curran employees. So we are we're finalizing the renewal contract with Woodard and Curran. So we're wrapping up the initial 9-year contract that we had with Woodard and Curran. We're finalizing the renewal, which would be for an additional 10 years with Woodard and Curran. So you can see a very sizable increase. Essentially, they have said that labor costs have gone up, and they were actually locked into 3 years of flat fees. So it was the original contract was 3 3-year terms. In each of those 3-year terms, their pricing was flat. So, you know, sort of their argument is that they did not receive any increase for the labor increases for 3 years, which is a fairly valid position on their part. And we know that there is competition for qualified licensed labor operators and other qualified folks that are in this type of business. So as much as it is a hit to the budget, they were the only bidder. When we put this out to RFP, there were no other bidders. So that is what we're working on now to finalize with Woodard and Curran. They have been very good, and they know the system, they know the plan very well, and we have a good staff in place. So that's where we're at with contracted services. But obviously, as you can see, it's the largest increase we have. It's pretty substantial. In subsequent years, it does not go up 19%. It's approximately 3 to 4% per year in subsequent years. So this initial sort of contract adjustment is what you see here, this 19%, 19.3%. General operating flat, that's sort of day-to-day business. What we did reduce is a line item called milfoil. So it's basically milfoil mitigation. Milfoil is an organic plant that grows in the lily pond. So we just haven't used that budget over the last few years. So we're reducing that to 25,000. So that gives us some more room for some more capital expenses. Chemical costs have gone up, as I said, quite substantially, but we're keeping that flat from our budget last year at 300,000. Indirect costs are the fees we the costs we share with the town for town staff, people like Brian Joyce, the technology department, and others. So that total is 138,000, which obviously is an increase you can see there. But as wages go up, people are added and other things, those indirect costs follow. So for general operating expense, I'll kind of just stop there. You can see it's at just over 3 million projected for the year, budgeted for the year, which is 7% increase. So any questions, comments, concerns on general operating budget?
Mike and then Diane.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, thanks for this. Just, yeah, out of curiosity, I mean, just in the event those contracted services end up being more, or the indirect costs, I mean, I guess what are the levers that you can pull in subsequent years if the costs turn out to be more than you expect going forward?
Well, the rates are the rates. So our revenue is generally capped. And we would be looking at reducing other line items. So, things like dam maintenance, sludge removal, we do have some options there. But generally, we have a tight budget, and our revenue is fixed essentially. So we have to watch it on a monthly basis. Brenda is very good about watching and documenting all the expenses. So we're always looking at this on a monthly basis to see what line items are above budget throughout the year. But contracted services is under contract. So there's no expected increase or variation in what they charge us. There's a fixed number of staff, and we know what our monthly cost is going to be for contracted services. So that's essentially a flat line item. Unless they came to us and said, hey, we need an increase, we would discuss it. Or if anyone thought they needed to add a staff member, we would discuss it. But that is a fixed sum of money. And then secondly, with indirect costs, that is something that we work out with Chris and his team prior to finalizing this budget. So prior to the next fiscal year. And it's all detailed out. We know exactly what percentage, the water department pays for each staff member. So that stays the same on an annual basis as well. That does not change. It will change on a year-over-year basis, but for a fiscal year standpoint, that does not change.
So that 1.18 million for the contracted services, is that the new step up, and then there will just be a small increase going forward for the life of the rest of the contract, or are you still trying to negotiate, kind of finalize that contract?
No, that is finalized. We haven't signed an agreement yet, but Woodard & Kern has provided us a pricing proposal, which includes the entire 10-year term with an annual cost for each of those 10 years. So we know that in year one of this renewed contract, it's going to be $1.18 million. In year two of this 10-year contract, it's going to go up roughly 3%. In year three, it's going to go up another roughly 3%. But we know that is the year one price, and it does reflect that that adjustment in the contract. That's why it's going up so much.
Okay, that was my question, is just that's the new base, and then it's a a modest increase going forward for the next, 9 years. Okay, great.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Diane?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for this. Just a question about the legal line item. I don't know what your actuals are in FY24, the current year, but $200,000 seems like an awful lot. I don't know if that's indicative of kind of additional litigation or, getting legal services for the contract negotiation with the with Woodward and Curran.
It's mostly engineering. It's
Oh, it's engineering legal. Sorry.
correct. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that
Okay.
we've approved or even. I mean, I shouldn't say that. We have worked with town council on 2 occasions in my experience over the last year and a half, which wouldn't amount to much. But this is mostly, and you can see here, I just unhid column Q, which is our expenses through 4/1, but it's mostly engineering. So anytime we need to design a new water main, if we're doing a project, things of that nature. So anytime we're enlisting a designer, engineering firm, or consultant for that matter, it would go into this line item.
It's there. Great. Thank you. That explains it. And then the only other question I had, just looking at the sewer budget earlier today, there is a pretty big acceleration of utility costs. So I don't know if the gas seems to be okay based on your actuals this year, but did you have anything for electricity above? Did I see that? Yeah.
Yes. So
and the 1.71 increase seems to be something that'll carry you forward.
Yeah, I believe so. So that our budget's 175 for this fiscal year, and as of 4/1, we're at 115. So I think we're in good shape there. But that line item does cover electric, heat, and phone. Phone is marginal, but obviously, running that plant is expensive. But that's what we've seen over the years, and we're comfortable with that number.
Great, thank you.
So, Chris, I just have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So, is the trend showing that at this point in time, last year's budget, we were at about the 115 point, or have prices risen? And do we expect, I mean, we're expecting that it's going to be more, but I'm just curious where we are based on usage from last year to this year.
Yes. So column O here, our actual spend for utilities was 125. So it's about in line. We're about in line. We have according to this, 3 months, April, May, June. So I would say we're going to be in line with previous years and certainly within our budget.
Okay, great. Thanks. I know that I had seen some numbers saying that water usage was down, so I didn't know if that impacts any of these numbers here. I mean, obviously running the plant is what we're looking at, but
right. Yeah, generally, that's an interesting point. I'd actually like to look into that to see how that correlates to water usage. But we're not running the plant much less. Because if it's not going to people's homes, it's generally going to the tank and things like that. So, but that's an interesting thing we can look at.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, then we will move on to our recommendation. So could I have a motion to recommend the water department budget for the warrant for our annual town meeting?
So moved.
Fran, do I have a second?
Second, Diane.
Okay, thank you. So could we get a roll call vote, please? Mike Barclay.
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron.
Aye.
Fran Collins.
Aye.
Rob Hillman.
Aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Meg Wheeler, aye.
and Gina Stino, aye. Thank you so much for your time, Chris, and for presenting these figures for us. We appreciate it. And sorry we missed the second sheet.
Oh, no problem. Thanks very much for your time, everybody.
It was interesting to read your minutes, though.
Good.
I did read them.
Good to hear. Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. So the next item on the agenda is the sewer budget. Chris, do we have anybody here from sewer?
We do. We have Commissioner Kearse in the audience.
Oh, okay.
He where is he? I'm trying to get him to promote. I can allow him to talk. Are you there, Paul? There it is.
Good evening.
Live and in color.
Okay,
Welcome.
thanks for promoting me. Been a while since I've had one of those.
I was just going to ask. Do you have a presentation that we can watch on the screen? Can you run it for us?
I can share screen. As the night gets on, the presentations get less fancier, so I'm keeping with the trend.
Okay.
As long as it's not in crayon, we'll be okay.
All right. The first one I'm sharing is this is a quick budget that our department head, Carol, had sent over to Tracy earlier today. And I'm gonna move this little square out of the way. This is the projected budget that we have for 2025, which was just kind of adjusted today. I've just recently taken over the role of the finances for the sewer commission. In the past, had been primarily done with John Beck, and he had passed away, and I filled his seat and came on board and worked with Don Piat to go through the finances, and then we had a turnover in our department on the administrative side, and Don left, so there was somewhat of a disconnect in the financial side. So I volunteered to kind of pick it up and get rolling with it. So meeting with Michelle Leary over the last couple of weeks, and Carol Rowe, who's our administrator, to kind of get a handle on where we are. So what you're looking at is the projected budget for 2025. It's about 1.6 million. And these are some of our standard costs that are here. The large ones being the Woodard and Kern contracts. Similar to water, our contract was up for renewal. It expired on December 31st, 23. But we have a 2-year extension that we signed, and that 2-year extension brought us to 875. Though it shows a large increase, but the 740 that's here also included another 80,000 or so that is covered under a different account that they also charge us. And I don't know that it is that is not the contracted services in Hull. It's a separate service number, and so their increase to us is really about 6%, and that number is fixed for 2 years. The other big expense that we have is utilities. The agreement, I don't know if it's with the town, National Grid, but that has ended, and we're just working with Brian Joyce to find out where that contract is. We did speak with National Grid today. They told us at a minimum, expect an 8% increase. It may go as high as 10. So we're projecting the 380 here until we find out from them where we are. So that's what we're getting from National Grid. I don't know if Chris has any information on that utility side of it, but it's something that just came to our attention over the last couple of weeks because we actually got a bill directly from National Grid, which we hadn't before. So that's something that we're looking into. Some of the other things we have in here, you'll notice our legal fees traditionally have been, projected a little higher in 24, and in 25 we projected a little higher. And the actual this number here, this is back in March. So when the that particular one is there. Right now, our legal fees, we still have about 20,000 left that we haven't expended for this fiscal budget. The reason why the 35 is there, we anticipate that being lower, but we had a systemic failure with the membranes in the plant, and we had to seek a legal remedy on the warranty to have those replaced, and we have not. We've come to a settlement with the manufacturer of the membranes, and we're not sure where the legal fee stands. So we're only projecting 35 through the whole year. Some of that expense would have been incurred in this fiscal year budget. We haven't. I'm not sure if we've received all of the invoicing from the law firm or not. So that is one area that we would probably see a reduction in. For the most part, most of the other costs that you see here went up about 8 or 10%. We're projecting to go up in our budget, and it's been pretty stable over the years in those other areas. So we feel comfortable about that 8 to 10% increase. So really, what's driving this number is the Woodard and Kern up 6% and the electric bill up about 10% there, or more, based on what National Grid told us today. Does anyone have any questions on this, on the expense side of the house?
Yeah. Hey, Paul. Thanks for this. Just a quick question on the 24. Looking at the service contract, just the year to date of 606, that annualizes to about 810. So just does the cost associated with that drop in the fourth quarter on the run rate to keep you at that 740, or was that you mentioned there was, I think, another 80,000 of extra expenses? Is that in the 606?
Yeah, so that's 606. You can see it. It says of March of 24. So it pretty much stays that 740 because it's a contracted price.
Okay.
So how it's paid out in increments, I'm not familiar with as much with Woodard and Kern, but that's a fixed contract number.
Okay, so the fourth quarter run rate is less than the average of the first three, then, to get you to 740. Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if they load up front the first quarter or not.
Are there any more questions? Diane?
No, my only question is on what the revenue side is, but he projected that he may be discussing.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick look at that one. Let's see if I can.
Just assuming those revenues are similar to what your expenses are.
Right. So can you see a Excel spreadsheet?
No.
Okay.
No, we see the original sheet.
Okay, let me go to share. Okay. How's that look?
Good.
Okay. So 2024, we were roughly 1.5 million. And what we're projecting for FY25 is basically 1.63. And there's an additional $100,000 a year in revenue that comes in. It's not technically a betterment, but it's the we have two private contracts with the Sewer Commission for the work done at CJC and the Cook Estates. So those are financed over 20 years, and I think it's at a 4% interest rate, and so that's where that 100 comes from, basically. So that's the revenue side of it. So it's about 1.73, and the budget's about 1.662. So we're in good shape. Our retained earnings right now are 1.5 million. I don't have that here on the screen, but we do have retained earnings of 1.5 million, and so there is cash, and we have about 4 significant events that are in front of us right now. One event has occurred in FY24, which was the failure of the membranes, in which we had to exercise the warranty. And the settlement on that was the membrane that needed to be replaced was about $400,000. They settled and said they would pay for half. So we're going to have to pay $273,000. And whatever that should capture ancillary expenses of, install, according to the contract. But I'm sure there'll be some expenses that come of that from Wood and Kern, but some of that should be included in the contract that we have with them. What's coming in 2025 is that on the capital budget side, we have to put in a new pump grinder screening system in the facility itself, which would sustain the membrane system at a longer rate than it's currently able to do. So we put in a capital expense of $500,000 for that, and we're going to bond that and finance it over 5 years. So the principal will be about $100,000 a year, and the interest expense is going to be around $10,000 a year. And the other item that we have, there's a grant that we applied for, and it's a $225,000 grant in which we need to match $90,000. So that is on the capital budget as well. So right now, I think 363 will come out of the retained earnings. That would cover the membrane and the matching grant funds. We haven't reviewed that aspect of it with anyone in finance in the town hall about how we want to account for that, or how do we want to spend it, what are the options are, but that's what our plan is currently. And the revenue side, it looks like that we'll, we think there'll be a little bit more on the revenue side with the harbor project coming online fully in 2025 at some point. One Pleasant Street will be coming online at some point. There's 14 condominium units over there that'll be coming online on sewer, along with the retail space on the bottom. Of course, the harbor project with the condominium units and retail space over there, that will be coming online as well. So there should be some increased revenues. We didn't put that into the projections yet, but we did put in projections, the CJC and the Cook Estates, because that's new revenue for us for FY25.
Any questions? Fran?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay, then if nobody has any questions, I would entertain a motion to recommend the sewer budget.
So moved, Diane.
for the warrant for our annual town meeting, Diane Kennedy. And do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Mike? Okay, thank you. Okay, roll call, please. Mike Barclay,
Aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Rob Hillman,
Aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Meg Wheeler, aye.
and Gina Stino, aye. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for all your help. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks. Chris, there are several people in the waiting room.
There are. So I was going to ask before you get to them, you have Tom Reardon for CPC, and you have Adam Norman for the water bump.
Yeah.
So,
And I was going to suggest that maybe we have the citizens petition for the water bottles next. They've already been waiting for quite some time.
well, Chairman Reardon's been waiting a long time too. So it's
Okay, all right. So
I mean,
he's-
I don't want to delay. I mean,
Nope, that's fine.
you
but
have
if
me.
we-
You have me all night. So,
But let's move those two before.
I'll bring Tom up now. And,
Okay, that's great. And then the people who are here for the water bottles will be next after him.
okay. Tom's joining the meeting.
Good evening.
Good evening. So you have some information to share with us. Thank you very much for coming.
I do, but
Sorry we're so far behind.
no, not at all. I think you're doing remarkably well, particularly with the school committee. So I looked at that and thought we'll probably do this at 11:30. So we're way ahead of what.
Mary and I are old hands.
Good, very good. Well, the Community Preservation Committee has voted to advance to the town meeting 5 projects and 1 extension of a prior grant. I can tick through these very quickly if you want, if you have not seen them, or just answer questions, whatever is the committee's desire.
Can you go through them quickly for us? Just a little review.
So the first is a $100,000 grant from the Open Space and Recreation account for a pavilion at the Paul Pratt Library. This will be added to a $125,000 grant, which was voted by the town last year, and is part of a total $650,000 program to construct an amphitheater and pavilion along the Ripley Road and Sawyer Street lawn of the library. This is to expand summer and spring and fall programming to provide greater access outside. The second project is a $10,000 grant for from the Historic Preservation account to the Cohasset Historical Society for an HVAC unit. There are 2 in the headquarters on Main Street, and they are provide some comfort for employees and visitors, but primarily they're for climate control for the collections, and they feel a very vital part. The total cost of that project is $13,750, and the CPC has voted $10,000 toward that. The remainder will be provided by the Historical Society themselves. The third project is also to the Historical Society, $12,829.46 from the Historic Preservation account. This is to continue the program to digitize the collections. The Historical Society has 32,000 items in their collections, and they are slowly trying to digitize those. And so this $12,829 grant will be to try to move that process along. The fourth is $8,863 from the open space and recreation account for a hydration system at Bonds Field. This is part of a broader effort on the part of the Outdoor Open Spaces Recreation Committee to try to get hydration stations across the town. They are working with the school department, with the recreation department, with various town agencies to try to fund those. We are participating in this particular one at Bonds Field. And the last project is $75,000 from the open space and recreation accounts for the Cohasset Elder Affairs to build a pergola at Wilcott Commons. This will provide outdoor space that can be used during the summer and provide shade so that they can expand programs for the elderly, but also for other citizens as well, and make much greater use of the open space. And finally, we are recommending an extension of the $450,000 grant, which the town voted in 2021, to the Conservation Trust to provide a permanent conservation restriction at 487 King Street. This was delayed because of the slowness of the state in processing this. They had personnel problems, and so it just ground to a halt for a couple of years. The Conservation Trust now feels that the state has addressed those problems and that it should be able to move promptly. And so they've asked for a 1-year extension, which we are recommending should be granted. So that's the 5 projects and 1 extension.
Good job. Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions? Fran?
Where is 487 King Street, Tom?
Well, it's 487 King Street, and it's an area that connects some open space, and so it's felt to be a key link in a network of open space along King Street. I don't know how else to describe, but that's where it's.
Well, it's got to be somewhere. I mean, it's got to be either down by the railroad tracks, or it's got to be up by Beechwood Street. I'm thinking this must be around with the Peppermint Brook area that goes through into Lily Pond. Is that what you're talking about?
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it is.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. And I got a $75,000 pergola at the Wilcott Commons, which is a pretty nice shady place. That to me seems like an awful lot of money to spend for a couple of umbrella tables. Might do just as well, but I don't know who else has looked at this, but
well, I think the versatility and the size will give them a lot more both protection and than would 2 tables and umbrellas.
Tom, can I ask what the construction material might be? That might explain the cost.
It's normally an open structure, like for a grape arbor or something like that. But.
Yes, it's very much like a grape arbor, and it's wood construction.
Okay.
Okay. Seems like kind of an exorbitant expense to me, but anyway.
And these costs have already been established, or is this an estimate of cost?
Well, it's an estimate until they actually get somebody who they need approval for the money. And then I think they'll get specific, but they have estimates that have allowed them to say that this is going to be a $125,000 project, of which we would pay $75,000.
Okay, and they'll pay the rest.
Well, it'd be nice to see a drawing or a rendition.
Well, we have drawings. I mean, I can get Paul Kearse to send you all that material if you would like.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, Diane, and then Mike.
Just clarification, and it's more, Chris, you might be able to answer this. I believe that the CPC funds are all on a reimbursement basis. So for example, if they did this project and it came in less money, we would just be reimbursing them our share. Is that right, Chris? Like if this came in under that amount of money?
That's absolutely right. We pay after the fact on invoices.
And Tom, I just have to say congratulations. You've done Russ proud.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, Tom, thanks. Just what's the current percentage match we're getting from the state on CPC?
Well, as you know, it varies each year. We budget each year. Chris does for 10%. it's been better than that over the last couple of years, but you never bet on what the state's going to do. So I think it was 20, what, Chris, you'd know offhand. I don't have those numbers in front of me, although I can certainly get them. But it's been maybe closer to 20% than 10%, but we've been budgeting 10.
Okay, so all right, so we budget 10.
Yeah,
I guess it's probably on the state website somewhere.
Yeah, there's actually there's a CPC website, Mike, that tracks all of this, and we've been running. Our revenue's been running ahead of our projections for several years, so it's good. Right now, I want to say that there's somewhere north of $1 million in all the reserve funds plus.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's
right.
And you know, there is a bond payment that'll start coming out this next cycle for the recreation improvements they've done, but that still is going to leave hundreds of thousands of dollars a year available for other projects. So
it'll be about 40% of our annual expenditure capacity in the debt service over 10 years. So, and it'll go down each year. But let's see if I have those numbers somewhere.
There's a whole spreadsheet Mike I can share with the community.
Yeah, I can follow up. I was just curious because I mean I know when most of the time when these were voted in, the state match was 100%, and so I was curious what it was down to now.
Yeah, well, it varies, but I think last year it was in the 20% range, Chris, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have 2 million in the undesignated reserve, 2,171,000. So, and each year, 10% of what we take in between the tax levy and the state reimbursement, 10% of that number goes into each of the 3 designated accounts: historic preservation, community housing, and open space and recreation. And then anything that's left goes into the undesignated accounts.
Okay, but the debt service is going to be 40% of that for 10 years.
40% of the annual payout, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, I see no hands. So could I have a motion to recommend Article 15, which is community preservation items for the warrant for our annual town meeting? Motion?
So moved, Diane.
Do I have a second?
Second, Mary.
Okay, roll call, please. Mike Barclay.
Aye.
Mark Cameron.
Aye.
Fran Collins.
Reluctant aye.
Rob Hillman.
I can do better than that. I except abstain as to the 2 line items relating to the Cohasset Historical Society because I'm on its board.
Oh, okay. I was getting nervous there for a minute.
No, I don't. I'm not coming out strong against the Historical Society. Quite the contrary. But I'm not going to vote for it either because I should. Thank you.
I get that. Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Meg Wheeler.
I'm going to pull a Rob. I'm aye, but I'm going to abstain on the library because I'm on the Friends of the Cohasset Library Board.
Okay. And Gina Stino, aye.
Great.
If pulling a
Thank you all
Rob
very much.
is the new way of saying I'm going to vote in an ethical way, I'm all for it. Thank you.
It's all good. Thank you so much, Tom. And thanks for your patience waiting to
Thank you so much. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Good night.
Tom, you were so good.
As usual. Okay, so who else is there? Chris?
You have Adam Norman joining you on the water bottle ban.
Water bottles? Okay.
Is Ginny presenting with you as well, Adam? You want to bring her up too, or is she just cheering you?
Yeah, I'm going to do most of the presenting, but it'd be great if you could promote her as well in case she has something to add.
Thank you.
Do you need to present something? Do you want me to make you a co-host?
Yes. No, I don't have any materials. So Ginny and I are still working on our presentation for town meeting, but it's not quite ready for prime time.
Okay.
So thank you guys for waiting. We appreciate it.
We do. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm digging through my paperwork here.
Yeah, it's all right. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming and your patience. We are running behind. We're sorry. We apologize.
Okay, that's quite all right. Should I go ahead and get started?
Absolutely.
All right, great. So my name is Adam Norman. I'm joined by Ginny Leclerc, and we both serve on the Cohasset Open Space and Recreation Committee. I am a co-chair. Ginny is our newest member. She's also formerly sustainability coordinator for the town of Cohasset and Hingham. And so what our committee has proposed, and I'm actually presenting at town meeting as a citizen. This is a citizen petition that I have filed, but it's also got the broad support of the Open Space Committee, and Ginny is going to be presenting with me at town meeting as well. So the proposed article is essentially to ban the commercial sale of single-use plastic water bottles under 1 gallon in size. The reason that we are proposing this article is that essentially just to reduce plastic waste. So I'm sure everyone is aware that plastic waste is a big problem nationwide, but we're particularly aware of it in Cohasset as a coastal town. We will be joining 27 other Massachusetts communities which have passed similar bans. Hingham just passed one that went into effect January 1st of this year. Lexington is the most recent town to join that list. The state of Massachusetts also passed a ban in September of last year. And the reason that we have chosen plastic is very intensive to produce. It's not easily recyclable, and it's not, unfortunately, likely to be recycled. There are also plenty of alternatives to plastic water bottles. So banning the sale of single-use plastic water bottles is not going to ban accessibility to clean water. Aluminum is a viable alternative. I just visited every single grocery store in Hingham, and all of them carry several, if not dozens of different brands of single-use water bottles. So presumably towns in Cohasset would sell those same types of bottles. The ideal thing, though, that we are really pushing, and the message that we want to get across, is that recycling is not the answer. We want to have people reuse water bottles similar to something like this, where you can fill it thousands of times, and it will greatly reduce plastic waste. The Open Space and Recreation Committee just hosted our annual Earth Day cleanup. We had that on Saturday. We've been doing this since 2019. We missed 1 year due to COVID, but in the 5 years we've held this event, we have collected a cumulative total of 10,140 pounds of trash. Much of that trash, as you can imagine, is plastic. We find it in our beaches, in our woods, in our streams, and we hope that this ban will help reduce the plastic waste that unfortunately pollutes our town. As Tom Reardon mentioned, we have a hydration station funding approved that's going to go at Barnes Complex. I will add that there are already hydration stations at all of our schools. The high school, middle school, Deer Hill, Osgood, all have access for the students to filtered, clean water. We hope to have some more stations at additional athletic fields. So the new project at Milliken, including the tennis and pickleball courts, that's going to include a hydration station. So there is plenty of clean water available to residents, and we hope that they will, adopt this bylaw and be pushed toward using tap water rather than single-use plastic water bottles. I should point out that as the bylaw is written, the enforcement will be, the first offense is just a written warning, and then the second offense is a $100 fine, third offense is $200, and then all subsequent offenses will be $300. But we expect broad compliance. The stores which currently sell single-use plastic water bottles would be given time to work down their existing inventory. and make the switch over to alternatives. The law wouldn't go into effect until beginning of next year or potentially later, depending on, I think it's up to the state attorney general's office when that would actually go into effect. So that's really the case I made. We think, I should say that the citizens petition, only 10 of the signatures were certified, but we gathered 300 signatures from our registered voters in town. Our committee was, walking the streets, pounding on doors. We also got help from the the green team at the middle school. Some of the students went out and gathered signatures. And so we think this has broad appeal, and we hope that the advisory committee will support it as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns. I know there's some misconceptions about these types of bylaws.
Mary?
Yes, what a great initiative. I think this is just fabulous, and especially in concert with the hydration stations. It's really awesome.
Great.
Do you have any just anecdotal evidence is too strong a word, but information that you pulled from the town of Hingham about how this has gone for them? For example, I would think this would be easier for the Stop and Shops of the world to adopt than Victoria's Pizza to adopt, because it's a different way of doing things.
Yeah, certainly. So as part of the outreach, I went to every single business in the town of Cohasset that I believe that I know sells single-use plastic water bottles, trying to kind of understand their support. And Victoria's Pizza was one of those businesses which unfortunately did not support the ban. I think there's still some education that needs to happen. So I think once they realize that, they can sell a Poland Spring bottle that comes in an aluminum can. Aquafina makes bottles. Dasani bottles come in a can. So I think that their bottle distributors, will quickly make all those alternatives available. And I don't think that their profit margins will be hurt whatsoever. As I mentioned, I went to the supermarkets in Hingham. A 12-pack of aluminum can water bottles sells for as low as $3.99. That's a little bit more expensive than plastic, but I think by just adjusting their sale price slightly higher, I think they can capture that potential concern about loss of revenue.
And then just one more question, if I might. So does this also apply to, the shrink wrapped 24 case single-use water bottles as well, that kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that one town on Martha's Vineyard has had an issue with enforcement, and some of the stores there, I think it's in Oak Bluffs actually, continue to sell those 24 packs. I brought this up to town council, and I think the way that the ban is worded, it seems pretty clear that would count as a violation. So I should mention the Board of Health would be in charge of the enforcement. They would issue the citations. I have spoken with Pam Fahy. She is very supportive of this bylaw and admitted that she did not believe this would be very onerous in terms of the time and resource drain on their office to enforce the ban.
Great. Thank you.
Mark?
Is there language in there to omit this this requirement in the rare instance that we might have a water situation here in Cohasset?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. There's if there is a state of emergency declared, then the businesses would be exempt from this enforcement. So yes, we do have that.
And then one other question. I know last night in the select board meeting, the question was brought up on the word distribution in the language there, and the questioning of, is somebody up at the soccer field that's been handing out water to kids and it happens to be in plastic bottles, are they going to be somehow enforced?
Yeah, well, this is really, it's a commercial sale and distribution. So, I mean, this bylaw was modeled after the same one that was passed by the 27 other communities in Massachusetts. I think the distribution potentially is in there so that a store couldn't say, all right, well, we're not technically selling plastic water bottles, but if you buy a stick of gum for 5 cents, we'll give you, I mean, for $2, then we'll include a free plastic water bottle. Potentially something like that. That's the only thing I could think of.
Okay.
But effectively, no, if someone wants to go out to another town, buy plastic water bottles and hand them out, they're not going to be subject to penalties.
Thank you.
Rob?
Thank you, Gene. A couple of questions. Do you have any more broad-based research than either, our neighboring town or even the few towns in Massachusetts that have adopted this in terms of percentage decrease in waste by barring plastic water bottles?
Yeah, I don't have those stats, but I will say this. So the great,
Okay.
well,
My question was whether there's any research, but go ahead. Say what you want to say.
I'm sure there is some research. So Jeannie and I probably still in research gathering stage, and so hopefully we'll have that to present at town meeting because it has come up before. But I will say this, that while we hope that people will change their behavior and bring with them a refillable, reusable water bottle as a permanent solution, we recognize that there may be instances and emergencies where they forgot their water bottle and they need to buy something. So the reason we like aluminum is because it's much more likely to be recycled. So statistics show that 45% of aluminum cans are recycled. I mean, they come with a deposit, so that's some incentive there to recycle, whereas only 20% of plastic water bottles end up recycled. And even those that are recycled, there's a finite life on plastic. It may be 1 or 2 times that plastic actually can be recycled, whereas aluminum, it can essentially be recycled infinitely. So it's definitely a better product in terms of the recyclability, the impact on the environment. But we still hope that people will bring with them a water bottle that they can continue to refill and reuse.
I had another question, kind of unrelated, but your assumption is that people will not buy water bottles and will carry an Nalgene and refill it, which is great. I'm all for that. But you're an 11-year-old kid. You've just come from baseball practice. You're standing in front of a drinks cabinet at a convenience store, and water is now in tin and it's 50 cents more expensive, and there is a bright blue bottle of sugar-laden sports drink, and about which every dentist in town cringes because they're not at all good. Did you consider the fact that to some extent this pushes a consumption choice towards unhealthy drinks, soda or really sugar?
Yeah, so that has been brought up as a concern. So one thing that I would like to do, and I'm going to reach out to the green teams for the high school and middle school to survey some of these students to find out what they would buy. My assumption is that someone who goes into a store with the intention of purchasing a water bottle in plastic and finds that one is not available and they have to instead purchase it in aluminum is still going to favor water because they're going to get a beverage that's going to hydrate them, and they're not going to go buy a Coca-Cola or a Gatorade or a Prime, although, as these kids today, they probably will rather buy the Prime than the water in the first place. But I don't think that's a big concern. However, I don't have proof and evidence. I can only speak to my own children who are 8 and 10 years old that they don't drink soda and they would much rather have a Prime or a Gatorade or water.
After running scout troops for 16 years, I guarantee to you that the switch to sugar is powerful. But that's not necessarily a reason to not do it. But I think it's a legitimate consideration. Has there been any attempt to put recyclable water bottles within the bottle bill?
To put recyclable water bottles in the bottle
bill? To put non-recyclable water bottles, to put still water bottles within the bottle bill.
I don't think I understand. I'm sorry.
So we have a bottle bill. Carbonated beverage in Massachusetts have a nickel deposit. And that was passed when I was in college, and it directly affected certain carbonated beverages that were important to me. And it raised prices across the board, but it did encourage recycling. And what I'm curious is that this seems to be a value judgment. You should carry an Nalgene, you should not buy recycled bottled water. Listen, this committee has considered PFAS and other plastic related issues that are costing the town a fortune. I'm all for reducing the plastic stream, but what I wonder is whether it's a very tiny Band-Aid for a problem that can be addressed. Is anyone considering putting water bottles within the 5-cent deposit rule?
Yes, it has been brought up in the bottle bill. I cannot say right now, but I can find out for you where it stands in the bottle bill. But I can also say that to speak to your thought about going into a store, when I traveled to California, I didn't have a water bottle and I was thirsty. And the airport in San Francisco, the only thing that you can buy is water in a aluminum can.
Because
And
that's the one airport that's banned it. Yeah.
Yeah, every single water you could think of is there. And it was actually quite amazing because then I had a refillable water bottle that I could use for my whole time out in California. And there was hydration stations everywhere that you could go and refill it. So that's what will become the norm. And it was very much the norm out there. And that's what slowly is going to become the norm in Massachusetts with already 27 communities, and then communities that are contiguous to each other. So not everybody has to carry a Nalgene, but if you go into any of the high school or middle school or elementary schools, everyone has their favorite reusable container, and hydration has become super cool among the youth, and the containers that they use have become super cool. I can speak to having a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old that hydration is very important. But the reason why water has been looked at to move into these containers instead of Gatorade and other items that you mentioned is because of the fact that water is readily available. You can get that out of your tap. You can get that from really anywhere, and that is something that we know is safe to drink here in Cohasset and in our neighboring communities. And that's why the water bottle, the single-use bottle ban has been looked at for water.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Fran and then Diane.
Yeah, I commend you for your efforts to put this forward. I think it's a great thing. You mentioned that it was a national problem. It's a worldwide problem. I spent many, many, many years at sea in the middle of the ocean, thousands of miles away. You see plastic floating in the water. It's bad stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So anything that we can do to mitigate this or to eliminate it, I'm certainly in favor of it. And I'm wondering why we don't do away with all these plastic bottles that carry beverages, whether it's, the 20, imagine when I was a kid, you bought a Coke with 6 ounces. Now your kid buys a drink and it's 20 ounces. My God. But to do away with all of the plastic bottles would be a great thing. But this is a great start. I certainly would have no difficulty supporting what you're trying to do.
Thank you, Fran. Yeah, and we had talked about that, whether we should make it more all-encompassing. Some of the towns in Cape, for example, in Nantucket, they ban all single-use plastic bottles with any beverage. They also have bans on nips, and I would love to see that. And maybe that's something we can explore down the road as we raise more awareness and get broader support. We can expand it. That would be great.
When I read this thing, I thought you were talking about nips to begin with, and I said, "Oh boy, isn't that grand?" I just probably right now in front of my house is probably 4 or 5 out there on it.
Oh my gosh.
No, mine too.
We found a lot of those during the cleanup for sure.
All right.
Diane?
Yeah, I think this is a great effort, and I think every little bit helps, and there's a million excuses and other better maybe ways to do it, but if we don't take some small steps when we have an opportunity, we're never going to get further along in this journey. 2 quick things. One, I did one of the cleanups a couple of years ago, and I literally had 2 trash bags filled with just nip bottles. I mean, I was horrified. I was down near the train tracks. And the other thing is there are 2 residents of Cohasset who have a company called Everybody Water. And I'm sure you've reached out to them, but they're producing water in like juice boxes, which, I think with their efforts locally, and then they give a lot, some of their proceeds to help, countries that don't have clean water to get better water systems there. So I think this is a great kind of initiative that we can bring some local partners in. So good luck.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Then I would appreciate a motion to recommend Article 24, citizens petition for a plastic water bottle ban.
So moved.
Okay, Fran moved it. And do I have a second?
Second.
And roll call vote, please. Mike Barclay.
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron.
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins.
Aye.
Rob Hillman.
Aye.
Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Meg Wheeler.
Meg Wheeler, aye.
And Gina Stino, aye. Thank you very much for coming.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chris, can you tell me who else is in the waiting room? Because it seems that there are.
There's nobody there. So
Oh, okay.
It's just you folks. So.
Okay, terrific. Very good. So we can go back to Article 4, operating budget. Are we ready for that?
You voted on everything but the municipal side now. So yes.
Okay. Okay. So do you have information to share with us, or are we just
nothing that you've already heard, I haven't already heard. So
okay.
All right.
Okay, great. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we start with our vote or recommendation?
I just want to make sure everybody got the updated warrant that Tracy sent out this afternoon, right? Okay.
I got it. I don't see the operating budget in it. I haven't gotten a copy of the final operating budget.
Now, Article 4 hasn't been, the Appendix A is not, it has to be put together. But it's all the pieces that you've looked at are all just being put together as to one package. So
when they sent us last week.
Well, it's more than that. It now includes water, sewer, and schools. So
it was sent today.
The municipal stuff you've already gotten has not changed. So the packet you received on the municipal side and the forecast that I shared with you that had the bottom line number, that's not changing. What you've now heard, there was water and sewer, which now need to get added into that. That's the next thing I have to sit down with our town accountant now is, which we've already started to, sketch out that Article 4 motion. So, and then get the Appendix A done, which is just wrapping this all together.
I don't mean to be an obstructionist, but it'd be nice to see the entire completed budget in one place before we vote on it.
I appreciate that. I don't know that we've ever done it quite like that. You've always heard the pieces that all add up to the one big. The thing is, I can't give that to you tonight in any kind of format. I mean, we still have we've gone over all the pieces, so you've seen all the pieces, and it's basically 4, I guess. The town, the school, the shared, and the utilities. And you've seen all of those. You have all the spreadsheets, and now you've heard water and sewer and the school piece. So
I got a 24-sheet budget thing that we sent last week. Isn't this the budget?
Well, that's, yeah, plus water and sewer that you've heard and the schools. Yeah. I understand where Mike's coming from. I totally I get it. We kind of stitch it back together again at the end. Pieces. So
any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
Fran,
I had a bunch of questions on the budget here. One of the main things I noticed that travel and meetings expenses, boy, that runs into an awful lot of money, and I wonder how many meetings these different people are going to and how much do they cost. I know it's a budget and they may not spend all that money, but it just seemed like an awful lot of money. And the other thing is the school support officer. That's a full-time policeman, is it not?
That budget line covers a full-time police officer and the crossing guards.
No, the crossing guards are separate.
No. We've rolled that in. I want you to understand, Frank, what's showing in that budget, that $106,000 is both the officer and the school crossing guards. That's what's in there. So what says school support officer is both of those things. I explained that when we talked.
I saw another piece in here that gave that that talked about the crossing guards as part of the school. What the heck was that? No, I don't have that.
They used to sit just in the police budget, but we rolled them up to the shared budget because they really.
But my question is, for the size of the schools that we have, do we need to have a full-time policeman here?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Boy, oh boy.
It's the resource officer that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like an awful waste of manpower. I mean, that with a little less than a 9 square mile town, you could have a policeman there within 5 minutes if you needed him.
Well, they still get called out to answer calls. They are utilized by the police department, aren't they, Chris? Are they still? They used to.
So the officers at the school all the time, doing programs with the kids, working with the staff, and actually while they're based at the middle high school, they also go down to Deer Hill and Osgood as well for programs. During the summer, they're embedded with the rec program, and they work with the kids in the summer.
Yeah.
Again, I think Chief Quigley would be better prepared to talk about it than I.
Sure.
That said, this program has been in existence now for 7 years now.
Was before I left the school committee.
It's
in 2019, and it was probably.
Oh, it's been going on for a while. I know it has, but it just concerns me that seems to be an awful waste of manpower to have. Maybe I'm overweight and out of date, but.
I mean, the state does. I mean, this is. I don't know that it's an absolute mandate, but it's most certainly something that's a best practice.
All right. The other question I had was a public health nurse. We had the public health nurse for $80,645, and we had a public health administrator, $90,506.
The nurse is full time. She does all of the nursing stuff.
Right.
And the director of public health is also full time. She does inspections and health and food stuff and septic systems. Pam is going all the time. So, the amount of regulations in the world of public health are vast. Plus, Pam also manages the multi-town grant that we have, which includes the regional public health nurse, the regional public health social worker.
So is she doing the perk tests and all that as well?
She can, yeah, she can do that stuff, but she also oversees those. She's certified as a
sanitarian or something like that.
Yeah, something. I forget the
okay, it wasn't clear how it was written. I understand now. Okay, I got it.
They're two distinct positions. And the nurse, spends a lot of time with not just seniors, but she does a lot of work in public health stuff. In fact, I poked my head into her office, and we have a new one. Mary Goodwin just retired.
Right.
So, and I asked her about some communicable diseases, and she threw me a couple back that they're tracking. Nothing dangerous, but part of her job is to monitor those things in town, right? If they get
that's fine. That's clear now. The other thing I had was on the library. They had wages and salaries of $537,180. How many people does that support?
There's 10 or more people over at the library, Fran.
It's on top of
they're open 6 days a week most of the time, and 7 days a week in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And actually they're actually lower cost than they were. What we've been able to do is there's been some retirements and some folks have moved around, so we've actually been able to stretch the hours with the professional staff and put more people. They have a children's librarian, there's a youth librarian, there's a reference librarian. They all do different things. There's a lot of programming up at the library. I think we get a really great bang for our proverbial buck with the library. I think it's a great.
Oh, I'm sure it's all good, but it makes you say, well, wait a minute, what does $537,000 buy us? There's no particular data as to how many people or what they do.
They're
I'm delighted with the library.
No, again, this is one of the reasons I wish I had the budget book back. So, which we work on to be working the book back together again, because that included tabs for all these things. And again, I'm sitting at home right now. I'm not sitting in the office. So I don't have.
Me too.
I don't have all my spreadsheets at my fingertips, but I do have a blow by blow of every salary on the town side and how.
Maybe I'll come down and talk to you.
But the library actually saved money this year, so there's actually less money in salaries than there was last year. And we actually put a little bit of that into their operations, so a little more into technology for them. So.
I have I got a couple others, but one more point in particular. The printing budget, you've got $10,000. How much printing have we given to the vocational school?
We do business card stuff like that with them, Fran. The problem is they're not on demand. Like, we're doing the warrant and the town report. They can't do that.
You can't do the warrant, but any other printing that they could do, any other.
Our biggest printing expenses over the course of the year are the warrant and the town report. That's not the only thing we print, but that's the largest thing we print. Most of the stuff we do in house, right? If we're just printing flyers and stuff, we do them internally. But the warrant and the warrant and the town, the warrants, I should say, because it's usually two. And the town report are all printed off by a third party. In fact, that's
well, as you know, Votech will do it just for the cost of the paper. So
right, no, it's great. The problem is that they can't do those jobs. We are having them do business cards.
Good. All right. That's a big plus.
That's not a time. We don't need that like instant, right? The Votech can do that great stuff. So all right. I guess you pretty much. And the other thing I got to come down and talk to you about this facility. That's you talk about something written in Hindu. I have no idea what all that stuff. I know. I apologize for how it looks. Again, we've in the past generated a report that's based on building rather than code like that, which I'd like to get back to. I would encourage you to meet with Nick if you want to come in and set up a time. We have a great team. I don't know if you are on Facebook or not, Fran. So we just started a featured employee. We're going to do 1 or 2 a month. And Jake Ellis, who's the deputy, was the featured employee. Great person, great background, doing great work. And the team is really doing some stuff. So if you want to get behind the scenes on some of that, just ask and we can get you.
I'll take a cruise down and talk with them. Yeah, we'll figure out what that stuff is. All right. Thank you very much, Chris.
No problem.
Okay, so I saw Diane and then Mike.
No, I just wanted to point out that the kind of line by line budget was in an email to us on April 21st at 3:40 in the afternoon. And I'm usually can never find documents, but I actually found it. So, and if I could share it, I would.
It is.
Yeah. Fran printed it out.
I don't have the schools.
Right.
And water and sewer.
What I was going to say, Chris, is just for context, that was a $34 million budget. Doesn't include schools, doesn't include water, doesn't include sewer, but does it include everything else?
It includes everything.
And then just in terms of the warrant being finalized and when the select board is taking their votes on things, what's that rhythm?
So we're in the last week. So the select board's meeting tomorrow night. They didn't plan to be tomorrow night, but they're doing an executive session and they're going to do a public session. So they might do some voting on the warrant tomorrow night, and then they're going to wrap up on Monday. And then the warrant goes to print next week. So that's the time schedule. And again, I do hope to get back to the much fancier budget book. I just don't have the staff resource to pull off, and we will get there. So.
You all set, Diane? Okay, Mike?
Okay, yeah, so I just want to make sure, so we're voting on the version from last week that was 34,191,935, correct? Plus the school budget of 24,328,186. Plus the sewer and water budgets that we voted tonight. That is the budget that we're voting on, the operating budget.
When you all put it together, that's the operating.
Okay. All right.
Though with the school, yeah, that's the schools have a little bit of stuff that's off budget on grants. I don't know that was presented in this number, so that's the only thing. I mean, the schools have a whole series of funds that are not tax dollar supported. Transportation, cafeteria, athletics, and they have a bunch of grants that run through. I don't think those are in that number, Mike, but I don't think those are in there.
Yeah, those aren't coming.
Yeah, those are
taxes.
Those aren't tax dollars.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure I have the numbers that we're supposed to be voting on.
Okay, so are we good?
We're good.
Okay, so could I have a motion to recommend Article 4, operating budget, as presented to the committee? And sorry, I lost my stream of consciousness, for the warrant for our annual town meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second? I didn't hear.
Second. Give it to Mike.
Okay. Okay, so roll call, please. Mike Barclay.
Aye.
Mark Cameron.
Aye.
Fran Collins. Fran?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Rob Hillman.
Aye.
Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Meg Wheeler.
Meg Wheeler, aye.
And Gina Stino, aye. Great, thank you. Article 6, supplemental appropriation for fiscal 2024.
So the number that I had to make sure you have is in the warrant, and it is
in the new warrant, or is it in the old warrant that you got last week?
The one that you just got. Let me give you the number.
Okay, because I don't have that.
They already presented. This is just the number for the 143 TVs.
Oh, yeah.
It's $59,825.23. So that's that'll be transferred to 143 TV. So so the article now includes that 59,825.23 plus the extra money going to legal, that's 75,000, and the extra money going to police overtime, which is 100,000. It's those three things.
What's the third thing?
Police overtime. I explained that we've had an unexpected retirement, unexpected departure. We are about to backfill, I think, fully over the next couple of weeks. And then we have that extra body in the budget for next year, which I think will help obviate some of the holes we've had. So we should be able to have better coverage. And hopefully, well, there's somebody else retiring, and it's on the horizon, so hopefully we'll be okay with that. So.
Okay, any questions on this one?
No.
Okay, so can I have a motion to recommend Article 6 for the warrant for our annual town meeting?
So moved.
That was Mike. And do I have a second?
Second, Mary.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Mike Barclay.
Aye.
Mark Cameron.
Aye.
Fran Collins.
Aye.
Rob Hillman.
Aye.
Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Meg Wheeler.
Meg Wheeler, aye.
And Gina Stino, I am an aye also. Okay, so next is Article 11, creation of revolving fund for library programs and specialized inspections.
What you were looking for was the number, the amount. The maximum library funds, it's $5,000, and for the specialized inspections, it's $50,000.
Sorry, say that again, please, Chris.
So the last piece of that was what the cap on each of those funds are. For library, it's going to be $5,000.
And that's a cap?
It's a cap, a spending cap. Remember, it's money that comes in and comes out, so it's the max that can be run through the fund.
Okay.
And then for the specialized inspections, which we talked about before, that'd be 50. I don't think I'm anywhere near that, but I figure it's better safe than sorry. Sometimes there's big fees on big projects. So
okay, and did you say 15 or 50?
50. Again, it's not like this is a budgeted item. This is just fees that come in.
Right. Okay. Any questions?
Move the question.
Okay, we're zipping right along. So do I have a motion to recommend Article 11 for presentation in the warrant for our annual town meeting? Is that Fran?
Yep.
Second.
And Diane. Okay, roll call. Mike Barclay.
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron.
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins.
Aye.
Rob Hillman.
Aye.
Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Meg Wheeler.
Meg Wheeler, aye.
And Gina Stino, aye. Okay, so next is Article 8 Capital Improvements Budget, but we don't have...
They literally voted this about an hour ago.
Yeah, and we actually talked about the fact that they may not be available for this until next week.
Okay.
So what are you thinking? I think we need some documentation for it, Chris.
We did just, I mean, I know that, did you, I had Michelle double copy it, so I think Mark has a copy. That said, I don't have anybody from the capital budget committee available on Michelle. I can walk you through the spreadsheet, but if you want to ask questions,
I think we need to ask questions, and Brian and I did exchange a little bit of a conversation, and I think he's fine with being on next week's agenda.
Yeah, good.
Okay, and they're literally still meeting. So.
And that's okay. He said, could we be at the end of the meeting in case we're done? But I think we'll just do next week.
Okay.
Okay. And then Article 23, Cohasset Noise Control Bylaw.
That's in the warrant, so we had talked about that. This is basically Hingham's with some modifications, and there are some modifications in there. The challenge in Cohasset is that, and again, this is a select board moved article, so I'm kind of standing in for that board on this. There is no real noise restriction going on. This I think there's something about 11 o'clock at night, but there's nothing on real restrictions during the day or weekends, unless there's something baked into an approval, for example, by if it's a big planning subdivision, a planning board decision. So what this does, again, with some modifications, this Article 23, which creates a new Chapter 170 called Noise Control, regulates the hours that you can do a bunch of outdoor things, including lawn maintenance and property maintenance. So it does give homeowners a little extra time. That was something that was a debate the select board had. So if you're a homeowner, you have an extra hour. Landscapers have to close up by 7 most of the time, and homeowners go 8. Sometimes we'll get home late, as someone said, to move their lawn. So there's other things in here too, but that's the core of it. And this actually may generate some of the most discussion on town floor, believe it or not. So I see. Did Mike have a question or a comment or something, or are you still looking at it?
No, I answered my own question. Thanks.
Okay, Fran has his hand up.
Sure. Yeah, in the one I printed last week, this was Article 22. Now it's Article 23. What happened at 22?
There's a number of zoning articles changed, Fran. That's all that is. So the article number may change again, but the article itself has not changed. It's just there's 7 zoning articles now. There used to only be 6.
Yep. All right. Okay.
You're doing a zoning next week, right?
No. Yeah.
Yes.
So so again, the basic reality is, of course, it has no regulations at all, and it was something we discovered, and somebody complained about something, and we couldn't do anything about it. Hingham's been down the road before. This is a little bit streamlined. Council took a look at a few things that Hingham and had in there and said, yeah, we don't really need to do that. So and again, one of the things that was important to the select board was to again give homeowners or a renter of a property a little more time to do their outdoor yard work than a landscaper. So in terms of making lots of noise. So I can answer questions if anybody has them, but again, it's tried and tested. Hingham's done this. Other communities have too. We incorporated some of the language from, I want to say it's either Winchester or Weston for a couple of definitions. But this gives tools, and it's not about decibel readings or anything like that. It's not like that. It's much simpler than that. and the police can write tickets if it comes down to it. The hope is that you don't have to do that. You can just point to the ordinance and say, please be reasonable. Don't run your power tools at 5 a.m.
So I've basically been lying to all my neighbors for 34 years then.
No, there's no
good girl.
Traditions. It's like you can't put the signs out. Right? You can't put campaign signs out. That's not a bylaw.
Don't tell them.
No, right. I know, but I'm saying it's so people have generally been good neighbors. Unfortunately, we're in times now where the historical good neighbor thing just doesn't work.
Right. Mary and then Diane.
We need to leaf blowers.
So is the onus in the way that this is written is that I understand if you're just working on your own property as the homeowner, as the contractor, is the onus on the homeowner to explain this change to you, or is it, how does this get communicated?
The best practice would be for the homeowner to tell their contractor you have limited hours. Okay. Now, again, if there's a large site plan review or subdivision project, the planning board may actually have restrictions already baked in. That sometimes happens, but most things aren't like that. And the building department doesn't have anything. So we can note this is probably not a bad idea that permits should go out with this attached. Please reference article, should this pass, please reference bylaw article 170, when you're doing work. It's probably a good idea. We should probably make that a practice, the building department. Even if we don't give out the ordinance, at least a link to it, say, you should take a look at this before you stop work. So I think we'll have to do a public education campaign with the contractors and the landscapers in town too. I don't know how much of a problem it is right now, honestly. I guess we'll find out.
Diane?
Yeah, I have questions just about sort of the unintended consequences, because while this is really focused on, somebody doing a gas leaf blower on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m., which we've all been subject to, I wonder what if you're having a big party in your backyard and you have a band. I mean, it is noise, it's after hours. It does reference music, but only in public spaces that have been permitted by the select board. And I know the select board doesn't typically permit or have a mechanism for permitting sort of private parties in people's backyards. So I think there's a lot more I'd really want to understand before I'd feel comfortable supporting it. But anyway, that's just my...
Well, we have been known to not take action and let things happen at town meeting. What do people think about that? Rob?
I mean, if you live in a neighborhood where every house's front door is 80 feet from its neighbors, this is something I'd generally be in favor of. Right. I mean, it would have been nice to get some sort of a message with the reasoning from the select board or maybe a member to come and talk to us about it a little bit. I don't know, Diane, what your specific concerns are about unintended.
No,
we're here. What would you ask them?
Yeah, no, I guess I just think it's part of like the PR campaign. I remember when I was on the select board, we had a couple of individuals come and ask permission to have a private party in their backyard. I just think that, at what point, if it's a noise disturbance and, like our backyards, my backyard is, I'm 30 feet from the person behind me. If they have a big, huge pool party and I could be a crab, I could say, they're in violation of this noise bylaw. But
well, I mean, it's been vetted by council. It's based on other towns.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just, what I'm thinking about, Rob, is more like the communication to town meeting, this is something clearly that has been, is desired by a lot of people in town, and pretty much myself included, but I just want to make sure that we're ready and willing to, to understand what some of the unintended consequences are so that it has its best presentation at town meeting.
I agree with you. I think that's kind of the select board of the proponents. That's kind of their problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that they're not doing, and I say this with deep affection, but I'm not sure that the fact that this hasn't been sort of rolled out. And how did things get rolled out politically anymore anyhow?
Right.
You know,
Without a paper.
Post-newspaper world. It was funny, as I'm rolling off this committee, my first meeting on it, I was shocked by members who were very deeply involved in public affairs, talking about how long it had been since they canceled their Mariner subscription. There are words I suspect that people who pay close attention to this would like to eat at this point. At least it had professional reporters and a platform of general circulation. I don't know how you make the case, and we've had this conversation before, I don't want to drag it out, but you know, I'm not sure, like, what, as between endorsing it tonight and not, what difference does it make? That's all.
Okay, so Chris, do you think that someone from the Board of Selectmen might chat with us next week about the genesis for this whole thing and you know how it came to be? Is it one member's passion, or is it people who come to the board?
I think it came from multiple directions, because one of them was from me. When I say me, my office. So we got a complaint from someone who had a construction site, and when they complained, and I looked at their complaint, we discovered, John Hallen and I, that we had no regulations that we can enforce. So on construction, this is a construction site. So, and the person was complaining, and I'm like, look, I'm sorry. I said, I wish there was something I could do, but there really isn't anything I can do. Or there's nothing in the bylaws that regulates. And I brought it up to Tom Callahan about zoning, and they, you know, he agreed. I think that there was an issue, but they were preoccupied with other things. I brought it to the select board, and I said, well, pull something together, because they had heard, members have heard. I think all of us have heard from, well, I should say everybody. I think anyone sat on the board at one point or another has heard a complaint at one point or another, right? About, and whether it's loud music, if you know, from the days when Gerd Ortelheide owned various properties, right? And you know, so that said, I think there's been an uptick in construction in town, and I think that's I'm not even talking about, you know, blasting rock or stuff. We have regulations about that stuff, but just the bang bang, power hammer, whatever, right? A power nail gun, I should say. And and as Rob points out, some of the neighborhoods are more close together than you'd think. And you know, Sand also carries a lot. That's it. And sometimes so it kind of came together. It's like, well, we're doing all these zoning. And there's a fair amount of construction. Maybe we should do something. So you know, I talked to John. So John Hallen, you know, looked around, and Hingham seemed to be the most logical starting place, because they were here. They already done it. So I looked at a few others too, and I gave the board a couple of options. They went with the big one. Hingham's is more elaborate than many of them. And it got trimmed a little bit. So so that's the one the board said, hey, let's go with this. So we vetted through council, and you know, they decided, hey, if we're gonna go for this at all, the select board was basically like, well, let's just go for something that's comprehensive enough that could cover, you know, construction, landscaping, and other issues if they come up. That said, it's not self-enforcing, right? People have to complain. We're not gonna have the police driving around listening for noise, right? So sure. It'll have to, that said, now if somebody calls and says, hey, my neighbor's using a backhoe at, you know, 6 a.m., we're like, well, they can't do that. It's section 170-whatever. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Most of the time, these things get solved by a call or a stop by from the building inspector or somebody saying, hey, you can't do this. Please don't do this anymore. Right? So, but right now we can't even do that. So I think if that, it kind of came together. This seemed to be the right time to do it because there was interest. And some of the board members were like, hey, I've heard from residents that complain. In fact, one of them, I can't tell you, I don't remember the request, but there was my dog is trying to dig through my kitchen floor, so if you're scratching. So so it had a similar situation like the one I described, where somebody was doing construction next to their house. And there was really nothing that we could do, except recommend they be better neighbors. I mean, I'm trying to get a board member to talk to you. I'm not sure they're going to be able to give you anything more than that.
Okay, so why don't we defer this one to next week also? And if you could please request that. I think there'll be a lot of conversation about it at town meeting or none. You know, I think that most people want to be good neighbors. Sometimes they don't realize that they're not being a good neighbor. I can't imagine that if I said, please don't mow your lawn at 8 o'clock at night. I mean, we used to have a problem here and we don't anymore. So I guess I'm a happy neighbor, but Mike and then Fran.
Yeah, I was just going to say when this came up in 2014 in Hingham, I mean, this is one of those things where you can't necessarily legislate every possible future scenario.
Right.
And there's sort of a common sense element to this that, I mean, I can tell you, having lived next to a big project for the last couple of years where weekend mornings, 6 a.m., there was activity that woke me up, which takes a lot. That's the spirit of this, is to, you know, have some rules around construction, landscaping. It's not to suppress people's right to have a party. And so, I mean, it's either, you know, there were a lot of naysayers on the floor of town meeting in 2014 in Hingham. Ultimately, it got through. I mean, there was no decibel measuring or anything like that, which I think at the beginning of that, there was talk of it. So, I mean, yes, whoever sponsored it from the select board, I think has to come forward with a passionate argument about why the time is now. But this is really just a common sense thing where there should be something related to commercial activities that restricts noise at off hours.
I don't disagree, I have to tell you. I think that there is a good neighbor thing that goes on in people's heads, but sometimes they just don't pay attention. Fran?
Mike, I couldn't agree more with you. That's exactly how it is. I'll give you an example. We had a younger neighbor moved in on River Road a couple of years ago, and they had one very, very loud party. The music was just blasting. And we were about, I don't know, maybe 500 yards away. So, you know, people had a party. They had made a lot of noise. They were having fun. And did it a second time. And I went over and said to them, you can't do that. You're just making way too much noise. Please turn the music down. I don't need to listen to Led Zeppelin or whoever it is that you're playing, you know. So, and they did, and we did. We had a problem again. I mean, sometimes they have the parties over at the River Club across the way. It's a half a mile across. And my word, it's like you and I talking here right now. It's so loud. But the thrust of this thing is construction noise and leaf blowers and lawnmowers and excavators and stuff going. The occasional outdoor party, well, you live with it. You talk to your neighbor, you say, I'm having people over, and we may be making some noise. And if you want to come over, come and join us, or you know,
that's the way you do it.
That's right,
neighbors.
Show up with food in a cooler. Yeah,
I don't see it as that big an issue, really. If it's happening all the time, it's an issue. But if it only is an occasional, you know, neighbor having a party, having their people over, then that's not a big deal. Anyway, Mike, you hit the nail on the head. Thank you. Those are the correct words.
Okay, so I'm going to put this on the agenda for next week.
Fine.
Chris, if you could please ask someone from the select board to come and do a presentation on the genesis behind it and, you know, what the intent is. We can certainly, if we decide to recommend it, we can put it on your recommended motions document at town meeting, because we'll be too late for that. Correct?
Most likely.
If we vote on the 8th.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that at this point. Any votes after the 6th are very unlikely to get in the warrant. It's not impossible, but it's not likely. So
okay. All right. So we're going to move past that one. Noise control. Citizens petition we already did. Town manager updates. If you don't mind, we could maybe skip that unless you have something that's really important we have to talk about. We can also skip liaison assignments because of the hour. I told you at the beginning, Rob, that I couldn't guarantee that we would be out at 8 o'clock every time.
Jean, can I not to belabor anything for more than about 60 seconds, but in terms of liaison assignments, we've got zoning next week. I'll send you some references to the one gap in the conversation that I provided the last time. The select board meeting, the one prior to this one, focused on the article regarding parking restrictions. So, I can't, consistent with the open meeting law, I really can't kind of go through it and provide opinions as to which are which or what I think of them, but I can say that probably the areas that will require, the good news is that the ones that are likely to have been controversial have by and large, a couple of them have dropped. So that will make things a little bit easier. Some of them are quite simple, like reorganization of the zoning bylaw. One to look out for, and maybe to look at some responsible journalism on, is the MBTA district. Tom will have intelligent things to say about it, but the MBTA transportation district zoning implementation has become very controversial in other towns, and Marshfield voted it down. And I think having a working knowledge of what it is and what the consequences of saying no to it are should probably be something that we're all a little bit familiar with. Some towns pass it without blinking. Tom will fill us in on both how the potential implementation works in Cohasset, and honestly, the key question is the practical effect of it. Where is going to be rezoned, and what's the likelihood of it being built out in a manner that would, fundamentally alter the character of town. That one's important. And it may be that, emboldened by the opposition in other towns, there may be some opposition, and Tom will be ready to respond to that. But I think as an advisory committee, if we stake a position on whether town meeting should vote to adopt it, we should be prepared to not just say that was our advice, but sort of defend our position, whatever that may happen to be. The consolidation of districts is a number of articles. They're pretty simple. The parking bylaw change generated a lot of conversation, and I'll just sort of leave it there. There may be a heat and light issue with it, and it does go on fairly eternally. But and then the last one is this that probably ought to take a look at, is this buffer districts having to do with height restrictions. If I conceive it correctly, where two districts bump into one another, it has setback and height restrictions. I think we should ask for a pretty good explanation of that. So I'll encourage Tom, and I'm sure you will too, Gene, to be succinct. But I think we can shorten things considerably by spending a little bit of time looking particularly at the MBTA one. Could be 5 minutes. It could be something other than 5 minutes. The parking one, it goes on for pages, but it's worth having a sense of what the issues are. And the border districts restrictions, which, you never know. I mean, maybe nobody cares. Maybe some people have a very, very distinct interest in what goes on. So that's going to be the fun for next week.
Okay, something to look forward to.
Tune in this time next week.
Okay, so just one last thing that will take just a minute. I'm sorry, Chris, did you have something to say?
The other citizens petition, which you heard last week, are you going to take a position on that one way or the other? The town hall one? Are you going to?
Not enough information.
I mean, I
I
think we should put it on the agenda for next week and vote it. I mean, that's our job. And, you know, whether if we don't have enough information, that's part of the information mix that we get to vote, you know, as a basis for our vote.
Okay, so it's a citizen's petition. Okay, town hall. Diane, did you have something to say?
No, Rob said it. I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so I'll add that to the agenda for next week. I have
what I do want to say is you know, to the extent that we can get as many votes into the warrant as possible, it's really a good thing.
Right.
And that's what I do worry about, you know, people getting warrants in their hands, because, you know, the excuse always is at town meeting, like, well, I didn't know enough information. And, you know, anyway, I wish we had another week to get a few more votes in.
Yeah, I wish the people had started earlier. What can I say?
I know it's not on you for sure.
No. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the fact that all of these folks had an extra month effectively. And we're still at the last minute trying to parse everything together and get everything taken care of that we need taken care of. It's a little crazy, but what can I say? So can we approve the minutes of April 24th, 2024, or does anybody have any issues with it?
That we can do.
Okay, so would you like to make that motion to approve the minutes of April 24th, Diane?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Mike Barkley?
Aye.
Mark Cameron?
Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins?
Aye.
Rob Hellman?
Aye.
Diane Kennedy?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick?
Aye.
Meg Wheeler?
Meg Wheeler, aye.
And Gina Stino, aye. Okay, so we voted that. And we are going to meet next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. I don't have any topics that need to be discussed, and you can thank me for that later because Fran's yawning.
Yep.
It's way past my bedtime. So I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Who got that one?
Mary and Fran.
Okay. Mike Barkley.
Aye.
Mark Cameron.
Aye.
Fran Collins.
Aye.
Rob Hillman.
Aye.
Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Meg Wheeler.
Meg Wheeler, aye.
And Gina Stino, aye. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good night,
Jane.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gene.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.